I hate it when StreamYard lags out my intro like that. It's like, what the fuck? Come on, guys. And I'm pretty sure you put more money into your fucking servers than that. Jesus Christ. But hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. It is Monday night, and we are here. Obviously, some of us are very hungry, but we are here for another episode of the Monday Night Movie Review cast. And I got my regulars here. We're back. It feels like it's been kind of crazy the last few weeks, but now it's just back to the OG. So we got Rob Model all the way in Washington. How you doing tonight, Rob?
Oh, pretty good. I'm actually looking forward to discussing this movie because I think I hated it less than you did. But yeah, or at least, I was entertained for a good part of it before it kind of had more glaring issues pop up. So I'm kind of interested to hear, this
is definitely one worth talking about because I don't know. This is we'll save it for when we get there. Let's go ahead and introduce our Whataburger eating friend, Rick Aragon. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, but tonight it's McDonald's, and in honor of our film, I am having a Big Mac combo. So I got a cheeseburger of sorts.
I mean, should you guys go to like Five Guys to get like a decent cheeseburger and not McDonald's?
Yeah, but it's too far. I wouldn't have made it in time if I wanted to go to the Five Guys.
I bet you a fucking Whataburger was that far away. You make it.
I had Whataburger last week. That's why I'm not having it this week.
Yeah. Update on my Whataburger. They're hoping to have it done within the maybe around New Year. So that's what we're looking at for the Whataburger here in Georgia. So I'm very close to trying it myself. And like I said, if it's not good, I will yell at you here on this podcast and disgrace the entire state of Texas.
We're so scared.
Better fucking be. But
think of the children.
So, we started like last week. I was like, we don't really have a big movie until we get to the end of the year, which we're going to discuss here in a second. And I was like, yeah, you know what? Let's let you guys review The Menu because that should be a film that, should at least be somewhat enjoyable. And I think I was wrong on that chord. But before we get specifically into that film, I know that a few of us watched a few other movies that came out that I wanted to talk about. Rob, I wanted to start off with you because you actually saw this weekend. You saw the film X and you saw the film Pearl this weekend. Now, as you know, I've been going on about how good the film Pearl is for the last few weeks. I didn't really get your consensus on that movie, even though you said the film X was kind of just more of like a Texas Chainsaw movie, which I agree with the most part, which is one of the reasons I didn't like it as much as Pearl. But what was kind of your thoughts on the film Pearl now that you've finally seen it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's well made. There's a focus and a vision by Ty West to tell the story of this girl, kind of like stuck on this farm. Her sweetheart's often fighting World War One. It's 1918. I think it's well made. I wasn't necessarily taken with it just because I have a harder time, I think, with horror movies. But I will say that it is a well thought out premise, and the performance by what's her name?
Mia Goth.
Mia Goth, yeah. Was really good. I thought she was actually really good in both movies, but she's really good here. She absolutely loses her shit. She just completely. Not only does she snap and becomes murderous, but I mean her performance. You really believe she's hysterically upset and sort of out of control. And so, I don't know that I've seen a performance quite like it. So I definitely would recommend, all movie watchers, if you're interested in horror movies, if you just want to see like a good performance, definitely check this movie out because I think it'll appeal to more people than just people who like horror movies too. I think that he did a good job just telling like a human story, and not just, blood and guts and, kind of the slasher thing. So definitely check it out. I'm just a little harder on horror movies, you know, especially like if I'm not, if it doesn't like convince me all the way or have me 100%. So I'd still probably give it a 3, you know, a little on the low side, but I would highly recommend it to anybody to check it out.
I just want to shout out to our chat real quick. Duke Nukem says this movie pisses me off. I hope you're talking about The Menu and not the movie that Rob is describing right now. so I know there was a lot of people like online, and this like when I hear like a lot of people saying, "Oh, this should get Oscar worthy buzz," it's like I always just kind of like roll my eyes with it, especially like this earlier in the year. But with this film with Pearl, because yes, it's a horror film, but it's much more of a character study than it is a horror film, because you're essentially watching a girl's descent into just complete madness, right? You're seeing the prequel to her origin story, and it's not like she doesn't have like a rhyme or reason to turn into the complete nut job that she is. It's like she sees the life of her being stuck on the farm. She thinks that being a celebrity is kind of her only way out, and she's not going to let anyone, not even her own family members, stop her from reaching her goal, because you are not going to keep her on that fucking farm forever, which is kind of ironic when you look at the movie X, which is supposed to be the movie chronologically right after that one. But one of the things I really liked about it is that it kind of told like the story of what happens to like a lot of, I think, small town people who kind of have this obsession with the idea of fame and being a star, and then they lose just all sense of like their morals when it comes down to that, and they lose themselves as a person, and because it takes them down a very, very dark path. I think this movie really played that off perfectly. I think the ending where she's kind of like monologuing essentially with her confession about what she's done like over like the past few days, like leading up to, I thought that was brilliant. And I'm not even that big of a Mia Goth fan. I think the last film I can remember seeing her in was a film called A Cure for Wellness a few years back, which I absolutely hated. When I saw that one years ago, that was my only real experience with her. So seeing her in this film absolutely turned me around on her as an actress. I think she did a great job in this movie. I was hoping that, you know, X had a little bit more to play in with that one, but it didn't really live up to those expectations. But they are doing apparently one more film in this trilogy. Is supposed to come out like next year. I think they were supposed to come out this year, but I think they ran into problems towards the end of the year. So there is one more in this trilogy that's supposed to come out soon. So I hope they finish it pretty well. But yeah, I mean, in a year that we don't really have too much to celebrate for, that's one of the few films I can actually say like, yeah, that's one I would definitely recommend to people for those who haven't seen it. The movie Pearl. But another film that I happened to watch this weekend, because I know it was between tonight's movie and this one, was the film She Said, right? So this is a movie, as we all know, is Hollywood's attempt to try to rewrite history and try to make it seem like that these two girls from the New York Times were the freedom fighters and the ones that did their due diligence to bring down Harvey Weinstein and probably brought down a monster that had been in control of Hollywood for like 30 plus years going back. And it's one of those films where right before the box office, which we'll talk about here in a second, happened, people were saying that, oh, this might win Academy Awards. This is going to get Golden Globe season. It's like, are you guys really going to award yourselves for a film that you guys created about taking down a monster that you protected for 3 fucking decades? Like, does anyone else not see the hypocrisy here except you guys? And apparently that was the case, because here you have the box office results for this weekend, and let's just put it this way: this film did not do very well. I think in the course of what was like 2,000 theaters. Let me see if I can zoom this in just a little bit so you guys can see it. But yeah, in the course of some 2,000 theaters it was released in, it only made about $500,000 this weekend, which is not very good. It is not very good. And it just goes to show, like, people were asking, it's like, well, it bombed. What happened? And you had Variety ask that question. Why did people not go see this movie? And it has a lot to do with what I said. It's like, do you guys not understand the context of the movie that you're making here? This is a 2-hour film where not only are you just burying Harvey Weinstein, the guy who was your guy for so many years, you're also burying men in general in this film. There was like one scene, and you feel like this happens a lot with modern Hollywood, where you have these scenes where, oh, two girls go to a bar, and then some sexist guy comes in there and harasses them and starts being sexually aggressive for no reason whatsoever. And then the scene ends and it has no bearing on like the rest of the film. It's just put in there to show, see, this is what women have to deal with every single day. It's like, maybe in New York because your crime is out of fucking out of whack, but it doesn't mean that this happens all over the country. But these are the type of things that you put into these movies, and it's like, look, times are getting harder. These movies are getting longer, and people are not willing to commit to 2 hours, 2.5 hour lectures about stuff that you guys have personified over the last few years to begin with. So I think that's probably a big reason why this film bombed, and it even got so bad. And I just want to throw this out there too. I saw this right before we went live. Harvey Weinstein himself is even gloating at the fact that this movie fucking bombed at the box office. This is real. This is not a gag. His lawyers put out a statement about the fact that the film only did like 500,000, I think 2 million over the course of like the 4-day period on a $30 million production budget, which I think that's a question that a lot of us had. How in the hell did this movie cost $30 million? They only did most of it in like the offices of the New York Times. How much could have possibly have been? But this is what Harvey Weinstein's representative said about the film, and I want you to figure out maybe he's on to something here. The film, she said, bombing isn't a surprise. Movie watchers want to be entertained, especially now. The details of this investigation, the Me Too movement, and the story of Weinstein and the accusers have been told over and over again these past 5 years, and it's clear that there's little worth paying to see here. Harvey, the film producer and distributor, would have known that. And then then Universal, who was the distributor of the film, did not respond to those comments. So I find it very, very hilarious that even the guy who they made this film about, but specifically just to dunk on him, is now dunking on them over what just a trash movie this was. I guess I kind of spared you guys of having to watch this movie, even though I can argue that it was probably better than the movie we're going to talk about here tonight. But what's kind of your thoughts on She Said just bombing and not finding an audience? Do you think Harvey is on to something there? I'll start with Rob.
Well, look, I don't know that I'll see this movie. And I, it reminds me a lot of Spotlight that came out, a couple years ago, but that actually made money. So I don't know. And look, I think the big problem here with She Said is that they crafted around Harvey Weinstein he's like this industry predator who has people listening everywhere and people watching everywhere, and he can see he can see what you're doing at all times, kind of boogeyman bullshit. And it's like, that might exist in Hollywood to some extent, but it's the Hollywood system. It's not just one man. And so, like, if they wanted to tell that story, it would have to be not Harvey Weinstein. It would have to be a made-up character who exemplifies that. You know what I mean? And so I just don't know. I don't know how effective that is and how much of an audience there is for that kind of story, because it's like people don't buy it. They don't buy into he was so pervasively predatory that I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, I couldn't it's like, yes, he took advantage outside of whatever rules exist for the casting couch, because again, he's not the only one. He's just a very high profile guy who there was enough there for some shit to stick. So it's just like, whatever. It's just another movie that's going to fail, and hopefully Hollywood will learn from it, but probably not.
They won't. Now, I did see She Said. It was kind of almost a spur of the moment decision. There were times, and I wrote about this, I wrote in my review, that at times it almost bordered on parody. There was that scene where after one of the reporters meets with one of the financial insiders for the Weinstein company. First off, it has to be done very secretly. I can only give you 5 minutes, and constantly looking behind.
Because Harvey Weinstein has assassins, apparently.
Yes. when she's leaving the restaurant, walking, there's a black SUV slowly following her, and then she turns, it stops, then she starts walking again, and then it just drives off normally. And you think, you know, are they talking about the mob? I almost expected them to check for car bombs to see if any
Yeah.
of them would explode. And you do expect snipers to start raining down on the New York Times office.
Yeah.
It bordered on it. Yeah, it bordered on parody. Like, are they really serious that this man is just so overwhelming everywhere that he has spies all over, and will take down all his critics? That was one problem. It it did copy Spotlight in terms of style, because it was very sparse, very simple. I thought I liked Spotlight more apparently than you guys did, but it was very simple, and it didn't quite work. These two heroic figures, they weren't very heroic. They almost seemed Carrie Mulligan, and it's curious. This is the second project that she's done about the evils of the patriarchy. Because we have to remember she was
The
in
promising young woman.
Young
Yep, I
Woman,
forgot
Yeah.
about that movie.
which was which was for me one of the worst films of that year.
Yes, I
I
agree.
And then this one. Oh yeah. And like, this woman needs, she needs help. She needs mental help. She does not need
Well,
to be
I
encouraged.
will push back on one thing. That film was almost self-aware, because they almost had a point towards the ending where she had to come to like that moment of realization that maybe she's part of the problem too. But of course, they can't let her come to that conclusion, so they go the complete other way. It's like, you guys were almost there to redeeming yourselves, and you just drove the other way anyway.
No, she couldn't. She couldn't. And so you have that, and she seemed kind of angry throughout the film. Somebody pointed out online that they thought it was strange that the cure for her postpartum depression was to go to work. I don't know if that.
Yeah.
I don't know if that works or not. When then we get these very strange scenes. For example, the movie doesn't open with Weinstein. It opens with Trump. It opens
Yeah.
with him.
They think the first act they mentioned Trump repeatedly, and I think there's a reason why they did that.
Yeah, it was Trump, and then a mention of Bill O'Reilly.
Yep.
And so it took like a good 15, maybe 20 minutes to start talking about Weinstein.
Wait. So the subject of Bombshell, Bill O'Reilly?
Yeah.
Oh, it was Roger Ailes. Roger Ailes was one of the main subjects.
Okay, but wasn't Bill O'Reilly involved in a lawsuit about sexual harassment related to that?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
And they did mention that.
Okay.
And again, it makes it sound like that they were crusading. Their brief mentions of Rowan Farrow, who I think did more to expose Weinstein than these two female journalists. And there was one scene in particular that just bothered me in that movie, when they're walking down the street, and Zoe Kazan, who apparently is the big star that's going to draw people in, she was like, it's like an ocean of misconduct. Can you imagine all the Harvey Weinsteins that are out there? And I'm going, that's not real dialogue. It does not sound to me like someone actually conversing. That sounds like
because it's
speechifying.
not dialogue. They're trying to create a narrative. See, here's some of the problems with this story and with this film, right? You have to remember that it's Hollywood and the left that's crafting this story. Is that they can't just admit that this problem of Harvey Weinstein is kind of exclusive to Hollywood's infrastructure. They have to make it seem like, oh no, this happens everywhere. So this is a national problem. This isn't just a problem with us. We're just a symptom of the bigger problem. So what they have to do is that they have to create a story and create an atmosphere where, oh no, this could happen. This happens to women all over the place. If Harvey Weinstein was only one of the guys that got caught, these guys are like all over the place. Even though you can look at the power structure of Hollywood and you can say, well, you know what, you guys make it seem like Harvey is the biggest demon out there. He's probably not even the worst one there, because we're talking about the rampant abuse system in Hollywood. At least his was women. Let's just put it that way. And then there's other things that you mentioned earlier where, you're talking about how they brought up like Trump and Bill O'Reilly early on in the film. That was done purposely because they wanted to set the tone of, well, see, this isn't just with us, right? This also happens to people on the right as well. So they had to set up Trump is also a predator and Bill O'Reilly is also a predator. So when we finally reveal Harvey Weinstein in the second half of the story, don't make it seem like it's just something that happens to us. They have to make the groundwork of this story almost absolving themselves themselves essentially of the crimes at hand here. They have to try to make it seem like, okay, well, we're not really the problem here. It's society that's the problem. So that's what they insert that into the storytelling where they absolve themselves of wrongdoing throughout the entire course of this movie.
Well, one thing that ties Trump and Weinstein is Ashley Judd, who appears as
Yeah.
herself, reading her own stories.
Mm-hmm.
And look, nobody here justifies anything that Weinstein did, but this is not just a him alone. And they make it, and the way they make it look is like with the secret agreements, and everyone's intimidated and everyone's afraid. It does make it look like he's like a mafioso, and
Yes.
it almost looks comical.
But I will say this: the one thing about that story that actually is true is the fact that, and this is what they don't really want to bring up, but this is what really happened: is that it wasn't the fact that Harvey Weinstein was this monster that needed to be taken down, and the New York Times finally stood up and be like, we're going to be the ones on the front lines of this story. They were going after Trump. They were trying to do everything they possibly could to stop Trump from getting elected in 2016, which is why if you go back to the first 10 minutes of that movie, it's literally every character in the New York Times and in this movie is complaining about the fact that, oh, after the Access Hollywood tape leaked, that Trump still got elected as president. So they're still bitter about that throughout the course of the movie. The reason what happened with this Harvey Weinstein is that they were looking for information into Donald Trump, and then the Harvey Weinstein stuff just kind of fell into their lap. And once Trump got elected, and then they couldn't pursue with that one anymore because the accusers essentially just kind of went away after the election. It's like, well, hey, we still got these shady things about the Harvey Weinstein story. Do you want us to look any further into that one? And then that's when they started to pursue Harvey Weinstein, and that's how the whole thing crafted with the Me Too era. But it really started as the Trump investigation that ended up catching Harvey Weinstein in the crossfire. That's what happened, especially with the New York Times, because there was stories about even like a couple of years before the story broke, how people were going to the New York Times specifically to inform them about things going on with Harvey Weinstein. They had a guy in the movie who was kind of like a point guy with Harvey Weinstein, a guy who has worked with him in the course of like burying stories and creating stories for years. So it wasn't like that, nobody there knew the type of guy he was. He even tells the girls before they even start the investigation, it's like, hey, Harvey's a handful to deal with. So if you guys have any issues, let me know because I know how to deal with him like personally. So there was already an established relationship between these two people before the events blew up towards the end of the film.
That's the sad thing. She said, for those who followed the story, there's not much here that would give you new information, and it does seem kind of a whitewashing, or at least close to it. For those who did not follow the story, there's no real interest or suspense about what this man is doing to all these women. One thing that kind of did puzzle me is why Harvey Weinstein, when you hear an actor impersonating his voice,
Yeah.
but why he seemed so obsessed whether Gwyneth Paltrow was involved in this. He kept asking that. Did you talk to Gwyneth? Is Gwyneth involved? Is she part of your investigation? And it made me think, well, Brad Pitt is one of the producers. Is he somehow still not quite over his ex? It just seems a strange thing to focus on as you're
Yeah.
being investigated with a multitude of accusations. To focus on one particular actress who thanked you very tearfully when she illegitimately won the Oscar, in my opinion. It just seems very strange. It just seemed a strange thing to focus on. I mean, I want to say, Harvey, focus. I mean, who cares about Gwyneth Paltrow at this point? You've got all these other people. You even have audio tape, and there was a very strange sequence where you have the audio tape, or at least what sounds like the audio tape of him with this Italian actress, and you just have endless shots of hotel rooms. I mean, not hotel rooms, hotel hallways. You almost expect the elevator to open and blood just flying out you. It just
Yeah.
seemed very peculiar, being a very peculiar set. But look, people are still pushing this for Best Picture. They are, and it might actually get nominated. They are still pushing it. The box office be damned. So anything is possible. Nothing is set.
And also, this is funny how, like I said, they focus so much on Gwyneth Paltrow, and then obviously they got Ashley Judd to be in the film, like as well. And like it was like her testimony was like the one that's like, okay, now we can really publish this story because Ashley Judd is ready to go on the record. I do find it kind of ironic that how they handle the Rose McGowan parts of the film, because Rose McGowan obviously alleges far worse stuff that was done to her by Harvey Weinstein than even the stuff that Ashley Judd went on record of. But what they kind of like glazed over with Rose McGowan was that the fact that a lot of people tried to discredit her for the things that she had said for many, many years. So the reason why they didn't try to go further with her testimony is because, well, she has a quote unquote credibility problem. So it's like we can't really print out with her because he can just go to like, was it, they mentioned like Variety and the Hollywood Reporter and essentially say that, her allegations are a bunch of BS, she's nuts and anything like that. But they couldn't portray that same thing with Ashley Judd throughout the movie because she didn't have the same, I guess, credibility problem throughout the course of the film as well, which is kind of odd how they decided to go that route by simply saying that, oh, well, we got Ashley Judd and she's more important than Rose, even though Rose's claims are far more damaging to his reputation.
Well, it's because Rose McGowan never claimed to be a nasty woman. We got to hear that.
Yeah.
We got to hear that in the movie. So that just seemed strange. And of course, you also she also decided to speak publicly. What did she say? As a woman and as a Christian. Which
Yeah,
okay,
which
okay.
that line made me laugh too when I heard that, because it's like you were literally at the women's march talking about like abortion during like the exact same scene that you clipped out, and now it's all says, well, as a Christian woman I can't. It's like, are you serious? Like really, it kind of shows you just how kind of tone deaf like this whole movie is, and just Hollywood is like in general. Like they cannot make any kind of intellectual connection to the audience that they're trying to portray here. They gave this film a $30 million budget, so somebody had to have thought that the Me Too movement was so big that women or people in general were going to just rush out and go see this thing to find out the real story of Harvey Weinstein. And it's like, no one wants to watch this.
No, for the people who followed this story, they're not going to get any new information or any actual insight into it. For those who did not, by painting Weinstein as this massive shadowy figure that just dominates all the world, it almost comes off as cartoonish. And I mean, also as I pointed out, there are no big stars in this movie for you to follow. Carrie Mulligan, who's a talented actress, Zoe Kazan can do good work. But who are you going to get? Andre Brower, Patricia Clarkson to
Well,
be big names in this?
and that's another problem with this film is that they keep trying to portray Weinstein as this shadowy figure that has all of these connections that anyone who tries to investigate him is dangerous for them to do so. But they never go into, okay, well, who are his connections? Why is he so dangerous to go into? Because he has deep connections with people in Hollywood. He has deep connections with the people in the media. The New York Times has a guy who has basically his direct line, right? He even at a time had direct connections to the White House because Obama was still president at the time, and I think even Obama's daughter was interning for his company at the time. So they portray him as like, oh my god, he's just this shadowy, sinister character. It's like, okay, well, why is he such a shadowy, sinister character? Well, to go into that part of the story, you would have to basically attack some of the people who are on your side. So you have to brush those details under the rug in order to get to the crust, whatever the story is.
Yes, I mean, came off as almost cartoonish, which is sad because this is an important subject. But we've already had Bombshell, as Rob reminded me, which took
Yeah,
down Robert Ailes and probably Bill
Fox
O'Reilly.
News.
Yeah, we've had this story where we talk about Harvey Weinstein and the courageous New York Times. As C.S. Johnson told me when I suggested that they're trying to go for like generations, all the president's men, remarked that it was like the Costco version, which seems like a nice line.
Yeah.
But I'd like to see a movie where they talk about Matt Lauer and what he did at NBC, or Charlie
Mm-hmm.
Rose, or any of those figures. When we get to that story, then maybe I'll be a little more uh, open about the idea that it's not some sort of takedown. I mean, really, the whole Trump thing, it just seemed irrelevant to the actual story. They're trying to tie it in. And I say this as someone who's not a Trump person. I did not understand. It seemed pointless to bring that in.
I mean, like I said, they did that specifically because they're trying to alleviate themselves from the problem that they caused. So in order to do that, they have to make it seem like, well, see, this was a problem with everybody. This is one of our guys that got caught, but we didn't have anything specifically to do with that one. So I mean, if you really want to be mad at someone, be mad at Trump because he's the one who started all this. It's like, yeah, okay, like whatever you say there, we definitely will solve you there. And by the way, Johnson says, yeah, it was a Costco version of the movie that you had shown earlier. Mm-hmm. Then Cassie had a line that says, "I've taken shits more entertaining than this movie." It's like, you're not specifically wrong. But look, as much as we slammed that movie, I can still honestly say it's probably better than our next movie that we're going to talk about here, which is The Menu. So I think we should go ahead and just go hit our our TV spot here and get into the movie. So if you got any food you need to wrap up on, you got 30 seconds. We'll see you here in just a bit.
This entire evening, this guest list has been painstakingly planned.
Is this bergamot I'm getting, Chef?
Yes, it is. Could we get a little gluten-free bread?
You donkey.
Make sure people don't bother me.
Would you like his autograph?
Who are you?
Why do you care?
Are you with us or with them? On November 18th.
We're gonna die today.
Isn't that right?
Get out of my way.
I didn't see that coming.
The Menu. In theaters November 18th. Rated R.
Hey, it's past November 18th. That means this movie is out right now. We are talking about The Menu. So, like I said, last week when I decided we were going to watch this film, I thought that we were getting the better of the two options. I think considering that the other one was She Said, and then somehow we ended up getting this movie. Now, as you guys have known, because you guys have probably been here as we reviewed some of these movies, we reviewed some pretty bad films over the last few weeks. We've done Don't Worry, Darling, The Woman King, we did Bros. It was a rough go with things for quite some time. I know you guys didn't watch They Them. Or wait, you guys did watch
Yes,
They
we
Them,
did.
right? Okay,
yes,
yeah, okay.
That's how I have Peacock.
Oh yeah, right. I forgot I still owe you $5. Here's the thing: I was gonna send you a Whataburger gift card, but like the minimum was like $15, and I was like, I'm not doing all that just for the $5. No, I'm just not gonna do it. But so yeah, so I thought we were getting the better deal here, but it turns out we didn't exactly do that here. So The Menu. It's funny because I looked into this film. The setup looked interesting enough. I thought it was going to be sort of like, maybe like a mystery film. You start figuring out, okay, what's going on with this restaurant? Why are they being held? Who's holding them hostage? Things of that nature. And then right before I went to go see this movie, and Rob remembers because I told him right beforehand, I found out that Adam McKay is the producer of this film, along with Will Ferrell, who's also a producer of this film. And I almost immediately had an oh shit moment when I found that out, because I didn't know that initially, but when I went in and found out, it was like, oh god. For those of you guys who don't remember, last year Netflix came out with a movie called Don't Look Up. Now, Adam McKay, we talked about Spotlight, or Adam McKay has had a run over the last few years where he's put out these movies that are quote unquote satire, but are not really satire. It's just him screaming at his audience. Don't Look Up was a film that came out last year on Amazon, and the whole premise is that an asteroid is coming to Earth to destroy everything, but nobody believes it, right? No one believes the asteroid is actually coming, and in his world, in his mind, it's an allegory towards climate change, because climate change is killing the planet, and nobody believes it. So in his mind, it's like, oh yeah, an asteroid coming to Earth is the same thing as climate change. So we'll do 2 hours, we'll put Leonardo DiCaprio in the film, and he can literally scream at the audience that we're all gonna die, even though this is supposed to be a satire movie. But we all know that this is how these people really think it in real life, so none of that was supposed to be comedic at all. So off the backs of this, he's doing this movie, and like Rob, I think you called it pretty early. I was like, oh god, this is gonna be a rich people bad movie. Did you feel like this movie led up to your pre-screening expectations as far as exactly what it turned out to be?
Yeah, it was pretty much like, I was thinking of what was it, Ready or Not, that movie that came out a couple years ago that was pretty well received, and I still think is a pretty good movie. It just has that kind of simplistic, oh, rich people bad, they all have to die sort of idea behind it,
but not us, the ones that are making the movie.
The Menu very much has that same premise in mind.
I agree.
Worst concept of execution than The Hunt.
Oh, I never saw
I would probably say
I like The
yes.
Hunt. The Hunt was fun. I saw it in theaters right before COVID lockdown, and I had a great time. So I didn't need anything more out of it than a, you know, what is it? Man is the most dangerous game sort of premise.
Yeah.
I love those types of
Well,
movies. So whatever, it was fine.
That's not original. I mean, we had a movie called The Most Dangerous Game with
Right. Yes,
with,
there have been
Joel
many
McRae.
movies like that. I like the ice.
And
I
that
like
was
the
great.
ice. What is it? Ice T one. Ruger Hauer and Ice T hunt each other in the
I
wilderness.
don't remember that. Well, yes, we've had a spate of these takedowns of the 1%. This Triangle of Sadness, I think there was a third one whose name escapes me. So I wasn't too upset about it, and I went into it thinking that it was going to be a spoof of rich people. So I guess since I went in with that kind of mindset, I wasn't. That's probably it. Glass Onion. Um,
Yeah,
so I
that's next week. Let's not jump too far ahead there.
oh, so I wasn't shocked. I wasn't. I met it. It met my expectations, and like I said in my review, this movie is not an exact parallel, but it did remind me of And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie, because it has a group of it's an isolated group. Excuse me, it's an isolated group on an island with all these various people who are going to probably be killed. Slightly different. I was expecting them to be killed one by one, and at a certain point, their secrets are revealed. But I mean, I'm sorry, I did enjoy it. Any movie that tries to pass Ray Fiennes as from Iowa has to be on some level funny.
First of all, I just want to give a shout out to you for your use of the mute button before coughing there. So we've definitely improved from the first week of this show. So yeah, I mean, the way that I looked at this film is that, like I said, going into it, I'm not sure if maybe they realized this or maybe there was something lost in the creation of this movie. It's that your bread and butter of this film is going to be the twist. It's going to be the reveal. You have a mystery here. So as long as your payoff to the mystery is good, people are going to be generally well receiving of the movie. But if you either don't give them a payoff or the payoff is bad, people are going to shit on it. And I feel like this movie simply, I think they set up for a bigger story here and then just never paid it off. So let's go ahead and get into essentially what this film is about. I know Duke Nukem is very anxious to get into this film because he's shit all over all night already. We haven't gotten into it yet. So the idea of this film is that you have a group of wealthy individuals. You can argue that they're the 1%, even though, I mean, they're basically like movie producers and like food critics and stuff like that. So we're not even talking about like the upper echelon people. Like, these aren't bankers we're talking about here, but these guys are on the boat and they're on the way to a private island so they can attend one of the most exclusive restaurants, in the world. This is something that only the top level of the elite class go to. So we start off this film with Nicholas Hoult and Anya Taylor-Joy, and they're the young couple here. And you can tell with Nicholas's character, what was his name again? Slipped right in my mind. Tyler. You could tell with Tyler here that he's very, very enthusiastic about getting on this island and being a part of this adventure because he's a massive fan of the chef. He's a massive fan of like the culinary world, so he's more into it far more than she is. Now, this is probably the first misstep with me, and I hoped that I was going to be wrong here, but it turns out it wasn't, because this premise here is that all these people are rich, all these people are wealthy, and they're coming to this exclusive island that because Anna's character, who we know as Margaret, because her character is not one of the elites here, that she's our de facto protagonist here. The reason why I hate stories that set things up like that is because the rest of the film becomes very, very predictable when you get on to, the reveal and towards later on in the film. It's like you already know exactly where you're going because you're telling me that this character is the good guy simply because she's not as rich as all the other ones. And that kind of completely just disrupts the entire setup of the story. Had they had not gone that direction and maybe left things a little bit more open to be revealed later on, I think it would have been better off. But I felt like I figured this film out in the first 5 minutes. And anyone else feel that way too with the way that they were going here?
I mean, I kind of just let it play itself out. You know what I mean? Because it's like I kind of knew that going in, and I had the expectation that this was a kill the rich, or as Rick put it earlier this week, eat the rich. You know, because I thought maybe cannibalism might be involved with it. So I didn't have high expectations, and so I just kind of accepted that going in. It was like, okay, she's gonna be one of like the non-elite, non-wealthy people at this dinner to give the audience, the general audience, a perspective. It's what I call like the character as a camera. It's like they are our perspective in the movie. So yeah, I mean, you could definitely be annoyed by it. Like, you have every right, just because it's so obvious and such a tired trope. But I just kind of let the rest of the movie play itself out.
I didn't get the sense that she was supposed to be poor. I
didn't say she was poor, but she clearly isn't as wealthy as all the other people who are attending this.
Well, I just got the sense based on the trailer that she was just his girlfriend, and she was kind of tolerating his bizarre obsessive fascination with this particular chef and the foodie fanboy, which is a very curious thing, that she was just puzzled by it. I didn't get the sense that they were poor. And actually, if you think about it, $12.50 per person is actually pretty much of a steal compared to some of the other dining experiences that people are willing to pay.
Yeah, it's not a Democrat fundraiser where it's like, $100,000 a plate or anything like that. So,
so, but I wasn't bothered with it. I like Rob. I pretty much was starting to just go with the flow, and you need that opening scene where you have to introduce all of these characters and set up very briefly what their beats are. The tech bros, the Thurston Howells, the producer, the movie star. I guess she would be the Marianne in this world of Hawthorne, Gilligan Island.
Yeah, so in this film, your other supporting characters, you have Janet McTeer playing a food critic. You have John Leguizamo, who's playing, an arrogant Hollywood actor, producer, whatever you want to call him there. You have like these three group of guys who I guess all work for like a shady business client, but it's never really told outright like what exactly they do. If they're like shady accountants or if they like just steal from people, things of that nature. You also have John Leguizamo's assistant who's in this film, and then you have kind of like an older couple who are. I think they were just supposed to be kind of just like old money like types. How they're just like wealthy, but they didn't really specify or give you any like reason on what they did. So that's kind of
regulars to this rent.
Yeah, there's people who have been here like for years, and there's even a point that we'll get into with that one. That these people who are always there, so they're just like kind of regulars. And one of the things that I thought that they were setting up here, and I say thought that they were setting up, is that. Because the story is that he was supposed to come here with like another girl, but then I guess they broke up before the event actually happened. So now he has this new girlfriend, and the old girlfriend is still on like the guest list and things of that nature. So when they show up to the island, everyone knows that she's not supposed to be there, right? Like everyone knows that, hey, this isn't guess who's on our list, and they kind of play it up to. Either maybe she knows something that's going on with this list. They tease when they were like walking into the eating area. You kind of like look up to the side and see the cabin. It's like, oh, that's where the chef goes. No one else is allowed to go there. So you kind of think, okay, maybe is she like a spy or something? Is she like investigating like what's going on? Like maybe there's a story beforehand that they'll explain to us later on. And it didn't really. I guess you could say it didn't really pan out that way. The way that the film goes, it just turns out, nope, she was just a girlfriend who was there supporting her man, even though her and Nick did not seem like they had any real chemistry whatsoever. I think that was kind of planted, but at the same time, it's like, well, you have to be at least believable enough to be here, like in the first place. You can't just go in there with no chemistry, looking like you guys hate each other, because it's almost like, why'd you even show up to begin with?
Because she's she's how can I put it without being too
Yeah.
much? Yeah,
She's a
she's
hoa.
she's a woman of ill repute.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say that she was a bitch, but I mean, I guess those things also work too because she did
Yeah.
play off that as well.
Escort. Let's just call her an escort.
Yeah. So the idea here is you move all these guys into this room, and it works the same way that any other fine dining restaurant works. You'll get a certain amount of meals, you'll get a certain amount of courses. All of the courses are put together in specific proportions. That way, no one can overeat or get full or whatnot. You're just here for the experience. So you put out one plate, they'll come in with another plate. You'll sit there and you'll have a good time, right? Or at least that's the thought. So it starts off the way that any other normal, I guess, culinary experience would start off. The chef makes an announcement. He said, "This is going to be your first course tonight," and this is a recurring theme with the film. Is that every time he brings out a new food item, he gives you the story behind why he's giving it to you, right? So he comes out with the first course. He gives you this long, elaborate like storytelling, but he's kind of being condescending like towards the guests. But everyone's like, he's a chef. Chefs can be dicks like that or whatever. It's all part of the show. But then as you start getting deeper into the night, as you start getting deeper into the courses, you realize, no, actually there is something else going on here, and we need to start asking some questions, because at one point you get to the second course of the night, and he has these custom made tortillas for everyone, kind of, I guess, explaining why they're there. So at one point he gives like the group of guys like a list of like bank accounts that they have been stealing money from, and they're like, how the hell does he know about this? At one point he gives the woman, the food critic, the pictures of the restaurants that she helped shut down because she gave them bad reviews and things of that nature. So that's when you start putting yourself into like the mystery of like, okay, clearly these people are here for a reason, so what's the setup here? And before I reveal exactly what's going on here, what did you guys at least think of the setup? Because I know, Rob, you talked about how this film, it at least had you for a certain amount of time, and then it kind of lost you when the reveal happened. But what did you at least think of the way that they set this film up in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the movie has a good cast, and even if these people are presented as unlikable, look, understand, I don't care. I don't care if your characters are unlikable. Like, that's fine. You can still have an entertaining movie. You can still have an engaging premise to sort of build a story off of, with people that are sort of like, that have no, I guess, warm qualities or heroic qualities. And so I'll just say that, like, yeah, I thought the premise and the setup was fine. I was interested. Like it mimics a certain like Chef's Table kind of like TV show aesthetic of like foodie types. And these people are obnoxious, and they're sort of like oblivious to the fact that they're, entering something they don't fully understand. So you kind of, I feel like initially, at least, it's kind of playful, and I'm at least open to it. But then there's the rest of the movie. So.
Well, that's what I was saying when I compared it to And Then There Were None. Because in that novel, you start out, it looks like a nice quiet party, but then there's an announcement, and they go down mentioning the quote crime that each individual or couple did, and that the law could not touch. So when they brought out the tortillas, and you had a range, which I thought was I thought the one with Tyler was rather innocuous, that they put on the tortilla that he was taking pictures of the food, even though he was told not to. And at first I just wondered, well, that was really fast how they managed to burn the tortilla to make, have that picture there.
Which I think kind of led people to believe that maybe perhaps it's like a super natural element to the story that we don't know about.
No,
Go ahead.
No, I didn't get that sense because, again, my mind went back to And Then There Were None. And I thought, oh, well, they're just going to try to kill each person based on their crime or something like that. Perhaps I was expecting something a little more clever. But it didn't really bother me. I did think his recounting his story about Taco Tuesdays was peculiar. And again, he's supposed to be from Iowa, and I'm thinking there's no way I would believe that Ray Fiennes is from Iowa.
Yeah.
That's more hilarious than some of the dark comedy that was supposed to be in this movie, but it didn't. It didn't bother me. It needed to happen so it could move the plot further along, and it does kind of suggest something when you have that. There's a mystery as to why these people are here, how they know this information. So that at least you start out well, in my opinion.
Yeah, see, I thought that they could have been going towards a supernatural element because, like I said, when Tyler gets his tortilla and it's literally him taking pictures like an hour ago of his food, which they told him not to do, like when he first showed up, but of course he still tried to get away with it anyway. So when I saw him, they handed the tortillas of him taking the picture with his date, I'm thinking to myself, okay, so is this like something more, I guess, sinister going on? And I thought at one point, well, maybe they can go towards an angle where maybe all these people are dead and this is kind of purgatory because we don't really know exactly what's going on at this point. So I'm thinking of what the possibilities they could have went with, which, hey, could have been also part of the problem of why I didn't enjoy this movie, because when you're watching this movie and you're thinking in your head where this thing could end up and where it could go, that when they actually take you to the right road, you think like, oh wait, that's it. And maybe that didn't help matters in that case too. Maybe that was just the way that I felt the film went.
And you weren't impressed with the drunk mother out there,
Yeah,
tucked away in the corner.
So this is where the film starts to fall apart with me, because like I said, we talked about how there's these three guys there and they start running like bank numbers like for all of these people. So you're like, okay, now it's starting to become clear that these people are here for a reason. But it's like, why is the chef in on this? Why are the people in the restaurant in on this? Is there something going on here, or is there let's just say an invisible hand at play here where they chose all these people to, I guess, make some kind of statement, or maybe chose these people to hold them at ransom for some reason? You think that there was going to be a greater story here, but as the story unfolds, it just kind of feels dumb because they don't, like I said, it's a film where they don't really give you a resolution of why all this is happening. You just kind of think like, oh, well, you guys are just all like rich assholes, so this is happening tonight. It's like, okay, it's kind of like kind of elaborate to go through all this just to be like, oh, we're only doing this because you guys are dicks. Because I think at one point he said to the girl, like John Leguizamo's character, it's like, look, I know I'm an asshole, but it's like, why the fuck am I here? Like, what did I do? And he was like, oh yeah, you made a shitty movie that I have to watch, and that's why you're here. And then you went to Brown without paying student loan debt, so that's also why you're here. It's like, that's it. Like that's the whole like setup to like why any of these people are here. It's like, that's kind of fucking disappointing.
That was a little bizarre. That her crime was that she left college without any student debt, which I thought was very curious as to why they. I mean, I would have let her live just for that.
Yeah.
But he took his day off, his rare day off, and he had to see Calling Dr. Sunshine. Now, in the movie star or John Leguizamo's defense, any person that willingly goes to a movie called Calling Dr. Sunshine, you really deserve what you get. I'm sorry, but this is almost Gilligan's Island. You have Thurston and Lovey Howell. You have the movie star. You have you don't have you don't have the professor, but you do have all these other characters that are not quite similar. I guess you would have Mary Ann, because she's supposed to be the sweet, innocent farmer's daughter. I don't know if she really is in the movie, but I was thinking, there's a little Gilligan's Island trope here. So I don't know if that's what was intended, but when you name your character in the credits, you name him movie star.
Yeah.
And you have the millionaire and his wife. I mean, I'm sorry, that just opens you up to comparisons.
So here's where we start getting to the turning point of the film. This is where you start to reveal exactly what's going on here. So right beforehand, the chef comes to Taylor, not Taylor's character, Anna's character. And he comes up to her and says, look, we know you're not supposed to be here. So you have about 30 minutes to decide if you're going to be with these people or you're going to be with us. And everyone's kind of like, well, what the hell does that mean? Like, well, with us. So they let you know that there's clearly a plan at play here. And it's like, look, we know you're not with these people. So you got 30 minutes to decide if you're going to be with them or you're going to be on our side. It kind of left it innocuous to where you're like, okay, what exactly does he mean by that? Then we get to the turning point of the film, which is where right before their next course, one of the chefs comes out and he basically parades him, tells his story, saying that this guy, worked his entire life to take my job and to be where I'm at, but he's not happy with his life. He's miserable with his life. He'll never be as good as me. Then he just pulls out a fucking gun and blows his own brains out in front of the entire floor, and everyone's like freaking the fuck out, like, what the hell is going on here? And then this is the one, I guess we'd call like a dark comedy. Tyler's character is literally the only one that's just sitting there clapping, because in his mind this is all still part of the show, even though a guy just blew his brains out in front of everyone, in front of the entire floor. Then this is where everyone starts like freaking out and whatnot, and then she comes back to was it Margaret's character, and he says that you got a few more minutes to decide if you're going to be with us or with them. And she's like, what do you mean by us with them? It's like, everyone in this room is going to die tonight. It's like, oh, so if I join your side, then I won't die? It's like, no, we're going to die too. And you're like, wait, what? So this whole thing is like just for show. Like, there's no like bigger like picture here. So even at this point in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, is he just telling her this like just to fuck with her because he knows that something else is coming on down the line? Or it's like, no, he straight up told her what the ending of the film is, that everyone here is gonna die. And you come to find out that this guy and all of these chefs in this room just went insane. Like, they just couldn't handle being rich elite chefs anymore. So they decided they were going to take all the people on this clientele here, hold them at ransom, and then I guess slowly torture them before they decide to kill them all in one room together. And that's kind of the film. Now, there's some other things I want to talk about here, but that's essentially your twist of the movie. What did you think about this point? Because at we'll get to the ending part, which is the part with her and the final meal. But what did you just think of the twist of that movie? Were you expecting something far different than what they gave you here? Or did this the part where the movie lost you?
Well, here's the thing. Look, how you're describing it almost makes it sound like, oh, hey, it's so absurd and crazy, it might be entertaining and fun. Except that, no, it's utterly retarded. Because it can't decide whether it wants to be a satire or a horror movie. And so it's like the reasoning behind why the people are there is so threadbare and so thin, so surface-based that you have no meaning. You have no reason to care or be invested in these characters. Obviously they make them terrible enough. But I mean, even Ralph Fiennes, his character, it's like you have no reason to care about his demented artistic vision of killing all these people. You know what I mean? And so I think that's really the biggest problem. And so like Tyler clapping and him being so out of it that, he didn't realize that someone just killed themselves. Like, it's not funny. It doesn't work. There's no glue holding it together. So it just is kind of crazy incident with kind of absurd black humor. And again, I like black comedy. I like demented, fucked up things. This felt like it didn't have anywhere to go past the initial premise. It felt like, oh, we're gonna make up an ending here on set. It just didn't feel thought out or well planned. And so it was like, okay, this felt like
because the problem here, before I let Rick go on, the problem here is you talked about with Tyler's character, how he just becomes like a cartoon character throughout like the rest of the movie, where he's like not even like a real person anymore. And then for like the setup of this is like, all of you guys in this room are gonna die tonight. It's like, well, you have to kind of justify like the deaths in a sensible way to at least the audience to be like, okay, yeah, you guys are just total dicks, so I don't care if you live or die. But when they, like I said, when they get to the point when they actually explain while everyone's there, outside of the guys who may have stolen money out of like a bank account, but they didn't like imply that, they were like sending families to the poorhouse or anything like that. It's like, you kind of just have wishy-washy reasons to why all these people are here. So it's like you can't even like get into it on the fact of, oh, these people are terrible people who have destroyed lives and they deserve what's happening here tonight. It's just like, unless you're just all in on that, we hate the rich, we just want to see rich people die, and that's your only context of, I guess, morality here, there's really nothing else for you outside of the concept of the movie. And that's a big reason why it's just not that well received.
Well, I slightly disagree, because Chef is pretty demented, so the reasons are rational to him. The rich couple that never appreciates his culinary confections, the movie star that made him waste his one day off, and I do wonder why he was so obsessed that he could only take one day off, and he opted to see a movie called Calling Dr. Sunshine, which just seems idiotic. I liked I like Tyler only because it was just so over the top. I don't bless, but I congratulate Nicholas Holt for just going all in on this parody of fanboys, which I guess having dealt with fanboys from other genres, I found quite amusing. But I just kept wondering how all the sous chefs and all the other cooks and his right hand henchwoman Ella
Yeah,
were willing to go along with this culinary Jonestown.
that's a
Uh,
big problem too.
yes, I mean that's basically what it is. I mean, it was like a culinary Jonestown where they were all right. Well, I'm going to kill you all, starting with my angel. And I came up with this really loony way of killing him off.
Hmm.
And that's a one time where Chef really starts screaming and ranting and raving. Fines was just remarkably controlled in his performance, where he did not have those kind of emotional, psychotic outbursts, save for those, because you don't have substitutions at Hawthorne.
Hmm.
I guess I embrace the what I considered the over the top nature of it more than you guys did, especially with Tyler. For some reason, I found Tyler endlessly amusing in his total obliviousness. No matter what the situation was, he was just more obsessed about the food. Except for when I know we'll get to it, except for his uh his end story, which I found not believable. So I'll grant that.
Well, I think the problem with the end story here is that I can buy the chef to being completely driven to the point of insanity where he concocts his whole elaborate setup. The problem is that you have to also explain why everybody else on his team is also all in on this journey as well. Like there's one scene where one of the female chef like stabs him in the leg because I guess he tried to sleep with her a couple times and she deflected his advances, and then it's like, okay, so is he just as shitty as like all the other people, or it's like because even though she apparently has animosity towards him, it's like, oh no, we're still gonna go in with this whole like death cult thing. So it's like,
Yeah, but that was her idea. Remember?
so is it like narcissism along with the insanity? It's like I said, you're trying to like mix so many things here, and I don't think it mixed the way they were supposed to, or at least they did it in their heads.
Yeah, I mean you have to remember that that was the other chef's idea for this
Hmm.
death cult. I don't know if it was her idea to have them go on a literal manhunt, which for some reason I found hilarious only in that Tyler again refuses to participate. He wants to go in. He wants to go back into the restaurant. For some,
Hmm.
I guess for some reason I just found that hilarious, and I admire again Nicholas Holt committing wholly to this lunacy. You know, again it just seemed kind of crazy, but he went along with it, and I can't fault an actor for going all in on the cray cray.
I mean, hopefully this is one of the roles that define the direction of his career moving forward. But maybe this film was a buddy favor. I mean, this is a Searchlight productions, and they're kind of like, hey, if you want to be in this other movie, you can do this film for us as a buddy favor. So maybe this is the
he
same
he
thing
he
here.
he needs to bide his time until he's invited to return as the was it Beast from in the
Yeah, X
future
Men.
X-Men.
They'll probably race swap his role. I doubt he's coming back as Beast. So that's just the way Disney is now. Yeah, and then like I said, to me, it's like there's just a disconnect there of if everyone's gonna be in on it, that's fine. If you're just trying to get back on these rich pricks, but when you start kind of doing like this over the top cartoonish death cult, it's like you're trying to, like I said, what Rob was saying earlier with parody and satire and like being a black comedy. I think the tone of certain like the rationale can't be as ridiculous as everything else in the movie. You at least have to follow it from a sense level of these people are just had enough and they're just going to torture these guys. There's going to be over the top and good because that's how fed up and crazy all these people are. But yeah, you have to show that because if you just mix a whole bunch of things that don't make any sense, you're just kind of sitting there like, what the fuck am I even watching now?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, and I don't know if you're going to get to it with what happens to Nicholas Holt's character, but like
Yeah.
him being basically embarrassed by his hero, his idol. To me, I
Yeah.
don't know. There's something about like I don't know if it was critics, I don't know if it's fanboy culture being sort of skewered by the artist, saying, "You don't know a fucking goddamn thing about what I do. Don't act like you do," kind of thing. I don't know. I'm probably reading too much into it in terms of the metaphor there, but
no, you're not. You're
okay.
not. I got the same sense that it was a dig at critics and fanboy culture that is adamant that they know more because they see things and they enjoy and participate in all of these things. But when you ask them to be the creative force, they fail miserably. So I got the same sense. Sense. Either you and I saw the same thing, or we're the only ones who saw it that way.
I could say this because I could look at it from two perspectives. I could look at it from the perspective of this is basically just a chef slamming like one of his critics, and we've seen this in much better movies. Like Chef is a good example of this, right? Remember the film Chef with Jon Favreau and God, who's the other guy's name? Just
I never saw it, but yeah, I know what it is.
Yeah, so there was a scene there where he's obviously an accomplished chef, and he brings like this like big time like critic to come over here to like test out his food, and it's like, look, I understand that you know what you're doing, like as a chef, I'm just not a fan of your food. Oliver Pratt, by the way, that was the name. Oliver Pratt is the guy who played the critic. But he's like, I'm just not a fan of your food, and he has like a breakdown. It's like, fuck you, I put my fucking heart and soul into this food, only to have some snooty asshole like you to come here and tell me that this shit's not good. It's like I can understand it from that perspective if that's what they were going for, but then there's also the other point that Rob is making. I'm not that Rob, that Rick was making about fanboys, and we know that Hollywood, especially nowadays, have a immense distaste towards fanboys, whether it's comic book characters or established TV characters. They just have a disdain of people who criticize whatever they want to do, whenever they want to change the course of like a franchise. Well, like I said, whether it's superhero movies, whether it's Doctor Who, whether it's about anything else that they've done over the course of the last 5-10 years, and they've started to lash out more and more on quote unquote fanboyism over the last few years because of that. Like if you watched the movie Scream earlier this year, which is terrible by the way, but the villain in that movie, well, it was essentially fanboys, right? It's the people online who are so obsessed with the culture that they just become crazed and they care too much, and I can see them going kind of the same way with this one too. But given that it is a movie about high class chefs, I can also see it just being a culinary response to, yeah, you're a fucking writer, like what do you know about the things that I can do and things of that nature. So I can see both sides of that one.
Yeah. So again,
I think we just lost Rob there for a second. He'll be back here in a second.
Oh dear. Oh, you didn't block him again, did you?
No, not this time.
Oh, okay.
No, he's been blocked by everybody else. He doesn't need my help. Oh, there he is.
Yeah.
So we're back. So yeah, so we get to, I guess we talk about this scene because it kind of ties in towards our ending here. Is that Tyler, the over enthusiastic fanboy, finally gets a chance to get into the kitchen. He's like one of these guys who are so obsessed with watching cooking shows. It's like, hey, well, go out there and show us what you can do. Give us your best dish. So it's almost like an episode of like one of Guy Fieri's shows where you just like, hey, you got 20 minutes, fix whatever you want to fix. And he decides to go like for some lamb and like cucumber cocktail type shit, and then he like cuts it in. It is obviously not like cooked perfectly either. Like he just kind of threw it in there. It's like, oh, I think it's done now. That's probably the most humorous scene in the entire film, where if the next course was literally Tyler's bullshit, which they highlighted on there. That was the only thing that I felt was like kind of funny towards this film. But then you go to, it's like, he says something towards his ear. He whispers like in his ear. You see like just completely dejected look on Tyler's face. And he just walks into the other room, grabs his stuff, walks to the other room, and hangs himself. And he's just gone for like the rest of the movie. So the way that his character just became more and more of a cartoon throughout the film, I was thinking to myself, okay, is there going to be like some kind of reveal with him? Because we don't exactly know why he's here. Like we know that he basically lied to his girlfriend because he knew that this whole thing was going to happen because you guys, he's such a fanboy, like he looked into it beforehand, but still decided to show up anyway, knowing the events that was going to happen. So he basically sentenced his own girlfriend to death because he's such a fucking mark, essentially here. But what you would say, you were talking about that scene earlier. What did you think about that scene and how that one played out? I'll start with Rick.
I really couldn't believe that whatever Chef had said would be something that would drive him to commit suicide, though he had been corresponding with Chef. This had been planned out for months. to bring the particular girl he was going to bring, and
Mm-hmm.
he knew the plans, but he was so delusional in his worship that he was willing to literally die right after having the meal at his hero's establishment. So I guess he was going to die one way or the other. I don't. We of course we'll never know what Chef said. That's probably the second greatest whispering mystery, apart from what Bill Murray told Scarlett Johansson in Lost in Translation.
That's right.
So so, but I didn't believe that. For the rest of the movie, I kept saying I don't believe anything he would have said would have driven him to that level. But again, by that time, I he had kind of become, he had embraced the parody. And again, I go back to his performance. I guess because I never took him quite seriously, I was fine with it. But again, that bothered me tremendously, that he would kill himself. And I mean, when you're trying to perform for your hero, maybe you will panic and not be concentrating. But again, I took it as a takedown of fanboys and of critics who constantly go after autistes and just tell them how bad their work is or how wrong their work is. And
Yep.
now they're told, okay, fine, you do it. And they find that they can't. So,
Shocker.
yeah. So I again, for the rest of the movie, I never believed that he would have killed himself. But that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fine, him killing himself. It's more just like the believability of him being in correspondence, knowing he's gonna die, like knowing he's coming to this meal or whatever. Like that's the part for me that's just a little like, okay, I get it. It's satirical. It's supposed to be like these people are so detached from reality that they would do something like that, and it's like it thinks it's clever and it's really not. It kind of irritated me with that sort of commentary. But again, at this point, I'm just sort of like waiting for the movie to be over. So
it's always it's always hilarious when you have rich people making a movie about how delusional rich people are, but they never add themselves to the list of the delusional rich people. It's like when Bernie Sanders made the shifts about complaining about millionaires, and now all of a sudden he's complaining about billionaires because he's a millionaire now, and clearly he's not bad. So it has to be people even richer than him that are the bad ones. It's like, come on, guys. So then we also get this one scene here right towards the end where Margaret's character goes to the cabin, right? They alluded to like this cabin and like what mysteries is gonna lie there. And she goes there and it's literally just an exact replica of the restaurant and like all the like the equipment and stuff like that. So it was kind of like a weird like what the hell is this? Because they had this whole mystery about what's behind the door, and you go behind the door. It's like no, it's just basically the exact same place that you were in before. Which is why even then I kind of thought, okay, so is this like a supernatural thing? Is this something going on here that I don't know? But nope. And then she goes and has like this one-on-one hand-to-hand combat fight with the small Asian girl who I assume knows karate because they made it seem like she did because she's Asian. So. But clearly she didn't know karate good enough because she dies. So
yeah, she was the henchwoman. That's why I kept calling her the henchwoman.
Yeah,
she wouldn't give the tech guys bread. Can we just have some gluten-free bread? Because remember, the second course was like all the elements that make up bread except for like wheat or or something like
bread.
that.
It was breadless bread.
Yeah, because you guys don't deserve bread. Bread is for the poor. It's not you, but So you get to the ending here, and the ending is that, hey, this is the finale now. We're just all gonna burn ourselves here in this room, so everyone's gonna die. Get ready, folks. And then Margaret gets the idea because it was alluded earlier that, hey, the one thing you don't want to do in this restaurant is send something back to the kitchen. That's like the ultimate sign of disrespect, especially towards the chef. So she just gets the bright idea of saying, hey, I don't like anything that you guys made tonight, so I'm sending this back. And it's like, I want you guys to make me real food, something that I will enjoy. And it's like, well, what do you want? And it's like, we can make you anything. She's like, fix me a cheeseburger. She's like, Okay, I'll fix you the greatest cheeseburger you've ever made. So he goes out there and fixes a double cheeseburger because she only said a cheeseburger. She didn't say a double. That's very Pacific in the culinary world. But she goes out there, fixes her cheeseburger. She sits there. She takes one bite, says that the food is good. It's like, hey, can I get this to go? And he's like, yeah, okay. And then he just kind of like lets her go. And so she just walks off into the boat and like leaves the island. And then it's like, okay, back to everyone dying now. So everyone else just goes up in flames and the fucking movie ends. So that was the fucking menu. What did you guys think of the ending? I'll start with Rob.
I think they ran out of ideas, or they just didn't know how to end it. And I watched it with my roommate, and I said, the hardest thing to do is to end a movie, especially a horror movie. But like, yeah, it was dumb and stupid. I mean, remember they were s'mores, they didn't just blow up. It was part of dessert. They were s'mores. Oh, that's so smart and clever. No, it's not. It's stupid. It's just a stupid like execution of an idea. And so and not to mention the idea itself is stupid. So I don't have much to say. It's sort of like they needed to create a reason for Anya Taylor-Joy to leave and not be murdered. So that was.
Like I say, it goes back to what we said earlier. She's the only one who wasn't a member of the elite, so she's the only one who gets to survive at the end. Everyone else dies.
But that wasn't the thing. The rule was everybody dies. You're either one of us or one of them, as if like part of the staff, part of the workers, making this food. And it's like, it isn't like, oh, we're going to present you with an option that we didn't present you with earlier. Sweet. It's inconsistent and stupid.
And then that's the other thing I was thinking of too. It was like, why was she the only one who like asked for her food to go? Because if he's letting her go, why didn't everybody else be like, yeah, can I get my food to go too? Like, I thought maybe that there was going to be like, they had found like some kind of loophole in the entire plan. So everyone just takes their food to go and leaves. And that would have made more sense because you've already established that the guy's demented and that he doesn't, he's just completely lunatic. So yeah, if someone just asks for their food to go and leaves, he'll just let him go because that's how crazy he is.
Because the point of this movie apparently is the rich people have to die. Them dying is the point.
Well, I found it quite amusing that he got them dressed up as s'mores. And he did point out that when they had the fake out, the obvious fake out with the Coast Guard, that you guys could have fought back. You guys could have actually taken us down, and you somehow opted never to try. So at that point, I was like, well, he has a point, a nutty point, but he has a point. None of these people actually ever fought back. They could have taken him down and just, they could have, the tech bros could have taken down, Madame Mao down there. If they wanted to, but they all were very compliant. And the fact that he dressed them up and he put like little little marshmallow costumes and a little chocolate
s'more hat.
I thought that was funny. I'm sorry. I thought that was funny. But you have to remember, she had information that none of them did. When she broke into the Sanctum Sanctorum, she saw how he had started out as just a simple, burger flipper. And I guess by using that knowledge, she got him to go back and regress. And I just took it as the guy's so obviously demented that when she like says, "Can I take this to go?" He's like, "Oh yeah, sure," because my mind is so far gone. I'm willing to follow this person's instructions, and they even gave her like a little gift bag to remember the evening.
Yeah.
And again, all right, we're going to I'm going to have to go over what I've gone over before. My number one golden rule of filmmaking: something will happen if the plot requires it to. It doesn't have to have logic to it, either internal or in real life. It will happen because it has to happen. And so we needed to have her leave. And that's how she did it, by basically saying, "Oh, can I take this to go?" And I don't know if he ever gave her the fries that she also asked.
That's a huge leap. It's a huge leap, though, just because it's ultimately what happens. And that, by the way, that scene is only there for that plot device. It's a plot device for her to go into the other thing other area to sort of get that information that she uses later to basically be like, hey, can I get this burger to go? Because I didn't like what you cooked me before that. I don't know. It seems
I
so
mean,
loose and so thin.
Roberto, I said it did not have to have logic to it. It
I
has to
understand.
happen because the plot requires it to.
It
So
doesn't
it
mean it's
doesn't have to
satisfying at
be.
all.
It doesn't mean
nope.
it doesn't mean it's satisfying, or it doesn't mean that it has to be logical. It will happen because it needs to happen.
Yeah, that's
So
fine.
of course it's going to happen, and that's why I was not as harsh as you guys are with it, because I accepted it for what it was.
Well, see, that's the problem with the difference between you and I, because we require our films to at least make sense. Like your movie can be absurd. You just have to establish it before the fact that your movie is absurd, so that way we don't overthink things. But it's like you can ask a couple of questions, like why didn't she just try to escape when she went to go get the barrel in the first place? Because it didn't look like anyone was trying to stop her at
Well,
that
no,
point. And
remember that he gave them 45 seconds to run out and escape, and all his
no,
goons.
no, this is when he remember when he sent her back out to get whatever item that they needed for the rest of the night. And
Yeah,
then
the barrel. It was a
yeah.
barrel. But the thing is, that's why Ella went in there and went all crazy trying to kill her, because she was screaming, "He never told me! I didn't forget! He never told me!" It's like, all right, you know, knick-knack there.
Mhm.
You just gone
And
crazy.
that's another problem. I remember when she was talking about, "I'm not gonna let you replace me." It's like you're gonna die in like an hour anyway. Like who cares? Like what are you worried about being
Right.
replaced for? You're gonna
Well,
be dead.
she should remember. Like I was told, remember, you are all replaceable. That's what I was told after we came back from furlough. So what is she
Mhm.
complaining about?
No, there you go. You know that is the mindset of the elite, as one would say. So I don't know, man. I'm just like sitting here thinking to myself, like, there's so many other ways that you could have went with this. Because, like I said, they were so worried about being a satire and bringing a black comedy and all these other things. It's like you understand that the core of this story is a mystery. Like people are sitting down, they realize that something's not going right, so they're investing their time into figuring out what the mystery is. Are they going to agree with the rationale towards the end of the film? Are they going to sympathize with the people who are being held captive? Are they going to sympathize with the chefs? And you presented them a movie where they really don't sympathize with anyone, so they're just kind of disconnected with everybody in this movie. And then it's not like Anna Taylor-Joy's character is the most relatable person in the planet too, because they kind of present her as like this arrogant, rude, like bitchy character from the start. And like I said, the only reason why she lives is because she's not one of the rich elite people. Like you got to give people more than that. Like this is a film to me that it had so many payoffs. I mean, it had so much setup, but it had like no payoff to it whatsoever. So it just kind of felt like a giant waste of time when it was all said and done. It's not my worst film of the year, but this is easily the dumbest film that I've seen all this year. It'll probably be in my top three. I don't think it's worse than Bros or Not Okay, but like this is one of the film movies where I felt like the only other movie I felt like this was with Bodies, 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 where the second the film started, I just didn't enjoy pretty much anything for like the remainder of the film. And then when like the credits started rolling, I was like, that was just a complete fucking waste of time for me. So I gotta give this a zero. Like this is a zero
Oh,
out of for me.
oh, well, it's your view.
Yeah.
I disagree. I actually was very positive in my review, probably because I found the performances well acted. Given the script, I thought Nicholas Holt really just went all in on the cray cray, and I accepted it. Anya Taylor Joy also went into it, and I thought she gave a pretty good performance. Fines, he gave the performance that was asked of him as this very controlled individual who's just going to plot this very elaborate murder suicide, and that's the role that that's the role as written. That's what that's what he played. Someone who's very controlled, always clapping and kind of being this Jim Jones of the food world, where he's just going to kill everyone. I'm surprised he didn't serve the Kool-Aid. I just went with it, and I enjoyed it. There were things that I didn't understand, like why Tyler decided to kill himself.
just some things.
Just some things. Why Tyler decided to kill himself. Why the other chefs went along with this. It's like, why did they agree to do this murder suicide business? But again, I rolled with it. I enjoyed myself more than I did with the Bros. I certainly, and if it's any comfort, this does overtake "Marry Me" among my best, better films. So for me, I enjoyed it. I would give it a 3 to maybe even a 3.5. I enjoyed it for what it was. I guess because I have a hard time relating to people who have 7-course meals. I usually happy with one
Yeah,
course.
but by the way, I just saw your VeggieTales video. I mean, I will play it now, but I will get copyright struck, so I'm not gonna play it. But I just want to let you know that I did see it.
That song did pop into my mind when she did ask for the cheeseburger.
Mm-hmm.
That is what I actually
see.
thought.
Even that part, it was kind of like I thought that it was like a shot at the chef because like I'm a 5-star culinary chef, and you're asking me to make something as simple as a fucking cheeseburger. Like even thought like even that in and of itself was like disrespected. But of course, you talked about how he has a cheeseburger pass and blah blah. It's like yeah, whatever.
Yeah. So it's like the way I looked at it, he was completely deranged at this point. So the way I figured it is she used his derangement to save herself. And again, it had to happen. It had to happen. That's what the plot requires. So I accepted it. And I guess I'm much more positive about this than you guys were. But again, my idea of fine dining is the Olive Garden. I'm not going to pretend to be elite. I don't watch cooking shows, so I enjoyed it for what it was, which was just kind of a silly, entertaining, well acted film. So I'm sticking with that. Bon appetit.
Well, Rob, you're the last one standing here. So are you on my side, or are you on Rob's side, or are you somewhere in the middle?
Oh, I mean, it's not a good movie. But yeah, no, I just want to say for the record, I've never eaten at an Olive Garden, and I'm not like against going to chain restaurants or anything, but I am Italian, and I'm never gonna eat there just because I can.
Last week you were Mexican. What is wrong with you, son?
Well, I see. This is the best part about being white is that I can just pick whatever I want to be.
That he can just lie.
I have the faintest. I have the faintest of other cultures that I can be like, I'm whatever I want to be. No. I mean, this is not a good movie. I am one of the people that likes fine dining. I do like going out to restaurants. I do like having a 4 or 5 course like meal. That's awesome. Like that's to be able to do that. That's really like a awesome leisurely activity. But yeah, I get it. Like it's kind of hard to relate to a $1,200 meal. It's look. I don't think it's the worst movie of the year, but it's not anywhere near the best. It's not a good movie. It's incomplete. It's flawed. It has major issues structurally. But yeah, I gave it a 2 out of 5. It still gave me enough entertainment to keep me interested for roughly 45 minutes until I was like, this movie's fucking stupid. So, and it's rare, where there are things that you can find to be entertained by, but at the same time, also be annoyed by the end of it. So, it's a lot of movies in 2022 have kind of not even met that bar. So it is what it is, but it's still not very good.
I'm sure you'd rather watch this than Bros if you had the choice.
Well, I mean, not by much. That's not saying much. I mean, Bros is like my number one worst of the entire year. So this one's just a couple notches below that one.
Oh, golly, I think you're too harsh. But then,
okay, Mr. Gray Man is the worst movie of the year after all the shit we've seen this year.
I would sooner watch this than The Gray Man. And I have eaten at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse once, and I had lamb there. So I mean, I'm obviously not as well off as Rob, who can afford fine dining and the ambiance. I mean, I'm happy at an Olive Garden or an Applebee's. That's me. I'm just simple working class fellow, who's poor.
Are you just a common man?
I am the
working hard for the man.
I am.
Are you American Dream?
I am. I'm a man of simple taste. I am a simple kind of man. That's all I can say.
Okay, quick little sidebar here before we sign off for tonight because I thought about this and Anna Taylor Joy has been in a lot of movies that I've seen over the last few years, but it just hit me that I don't think she's been in a film that I've actually liked since Split, which was what 5 years ago, maybe even a little bit longer than that. I mean, so here's a Rolodex of films that I remember her being here. She was obviously in Amsterdam we watched earlier this year, which wasn't fucking good. So she's already 0 for 2 for her last two. She was in The Northman, which I know a lot of people like The Northman. I personally didn't. I just didn't like that film at all. She was in Last Night in Soho, which is a film that I actually did like until the third act, and I absolutely fucking hated the third act of that film. She was in The New Mutants, which, was so bad that even Fox didn't want to release that nonsense. And then she's been in like other things like Glass and Thoroughbred, but it's like nothing I've seen her in since Split like I've actually liked. So is that just me? Like, do you guys view her more favorably than I do?
I think it's dependent on her, the director she's working with and the material she's doing. But I think she's a good actress for the most part. But you're right. She hasn't necessarily been very successful with the things she's chosen. I think she's just been more based on popularity. Like, I think she's going to be Furiosa in the new Mad Max, like the Mad Max prequel, which I have no interest in seeing that personally, but I have nothing against Anya Taylor-Joy. I think she's capable, but again, it just depends on the material and what she's going out for.
Yeah. I think she's actually good. I mean, I guess I enjoyed the New Mutants. I didn't think she was good in that one, but I enjoyed it because I think it was one of the first films that I was permitted to see. They wouldn't kill people to go and see it. But the one thing that I did, one movie that I guess you haven't seen that I did like was the remake of Emma, and I thought she was pretty. Yeah, I thought she was pretty good in that one. So that's where I remember her from. I never saw the Queen's Gambit, which I understand was very popular for a time, but I'm not as well familiar with her work. I never saw what was it Last Night in Soho or whatever that is, so I can't comment. I kind of like the New Mutants, although I didn't like her in it. I liked Emma, and I liked her in it, and I actually liked this movie much more than you guys did. So I think I'm going to lean towards what Rob says. I think it depends on who's directing her and the story that she's in. She's as good as the material. There's some actors that are as good as the material. So that's my view on her.
Well, like I said, I'll be alone in that island, but yeah, she's not coming out with anything else that I'm looking forward to. I think the only big ones, like I said, the Furiosa and the Mario Brothers movie that comes out next year, where she's playing Princess Peach. So there's that. If you're into that type of thing, so
yeah, you're trapped on Hawthorne. Get some s'mores. And actually, when they talked about the s'mores, all I could think of was The Sandlot.
Which you mean a much better movie? Is that what you're making
well,
the
no, I was just thinking about the fixation with the s'mores.
Mm-hmm.
About, how can I get s'more of something I don't have?
All right, then let's go ahead and wrap this show up. Let's start with Rick. Let's get on out of here. Rick, you posted your written review, so what else do you have coming up this week?
Yeah, well, I posted that. I posted my She Said review. I'll be working on the Peacock documentary, and hopefully, again, trying to just get through the DVDs and DVRs that I have. It's award season because I'm getting a lot more screeners and screening links. There's a documentary that I will be reviewing, but it has an embargo date until Monday. And I have another documentary, baseball related, so that's positive. That doesn't have an embargo date, and hopefully I'll see that during the Thanksgiving break, since I'm going to be off from Thursday to Sunday, and just trying to get through a lot of the DVDs, DVRs, and the flood of screeners that are coming my way. I'm just pretty much waiting for the film critics to start, to start submitting my name, submitting nominations for awards, and yeah, I mean, I might put in Nicholas Hoult as supporting actor for this movie in my nomination slate. So that's pretty much it. You can find me at Rick's Cafe Texan or Rick's Texan Reviews, and just looking forward to seeing a movie that I genuinely love this year, and maybe with any luck, I'll get a ticket for Your Generation's George Gershwin Ella Fitzgerald mix.
Rick, I just want you to know that you're only on this show because Sarah won't return our phone calls. So just want to let that be known for the record.
That's racist, sir. I'm the Mexican representation here. How dare you?
Oh God. Well, going to our, I guess, quarter Mexican representation would be Rob. What we got coming up, Rob?
Not a whole lot. I'm working this week, but I wish I had Thanksgiving off so I could sit at home and watch movies and eat food. But yeah, I'll do that after work, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just tweeting. Go to my Twitter. It's down there. I'm watching a lot of movies right now. I have a lot of 2022 movies to get through, like Cha Cha Real Smooth and The Greatest Beer Run Ever, and just other just 2022 movies, so I can come up with a best of and worst of list. I'm hoping I can get a top five this year. It's going to be really hard. There's not.
Yeah, because I keep forgetting that you guys don't watch nearly as much movies as I do. So I got a top 10 ready. But it's would any of you guys, if you were to put a list together right now, are any of you guys confident with at least a top 5 best and worst of the year?
Worst, definitely, but not best.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, for the worst, that's easy slot. For the best, I could put in some, but I know I'm going to get a lot of pushback from you guys.
Well, that's what we make the list for, so we can yell at you when you make bad picks. So. And then letting you guys know what we got coming up. So tomorrow is episode 5 of the Barroom Podcast. We've made it to 25 episodes. Last week's episode blew up. It's our highest viewed episode so far. So thank you for that one. This week we're going to be talking about the tragic passing of Jason David Frank. As you guys know, as the original Green Ranger, the White Ranger. He committed suicide over the weekend. We'll talk about that tomorrow. We'll talk about Bob Iger coming back, being the head of Disney, and while Disney is only going to get worse, significantly worse than they already are in the next couple of years. We'll talk about why people, specifically white women, are very upset about not being able to get Taylor Swift tickets on Ticketmaster, and the fact that they're now calling for government intervention because they can't get tickets. The Walking Dead finally came to an end after 11 seasons, and it shows feel like it's been on 15 years. So we'll talk about The Walking Dead finally being over. And then we'll talk about a subject that I know Rob's going to want to talk about. Does Chris Hemsworth truly hate David Cohen? Because it feels like he doesn't really like that dude. So we'll talk about that tomorrow night as well. No Retro Wave this week, but we will have a Black Pill stream on Wednesday night. So that's everything that I got coming up. And then next week, as we said, I didn't make the announcement. I guess we can make it here. That next week we will be reviewing The Glass Onion, which is the sequel to, Knives Out. So we'll be watching that one. I don't have very high hopes for it. It is Rian Johnson who we're talking about, even though the media absolutely loves Rian Johnson because he gave them The Last Jedi, which they pretend is the greatest Star Wars movie ever when it's absolutely fucking not. But we'll talk about that and some more themes next week when we do the show here. So any other last words before we sign off for everyone?
Yeah, the Glass Onion thing, that's going to be on Netflix, correct?
Yeah.
Which one? Yeah, I think it's also getting a theatrical release in some cities too. So I would check your local theater just to make sure that's getting a release.
I will look. So far, I can't find it playing, but
yeah, like I said, I know it's playing here. I know it's playing in some other cities. So you would have to check that out because I was going to tell you this right now. Your other option isn't very well. If you want to be the lone person who reviews Devotion, which is that movie with the guy who's going to be playing Kang in the Avengers in the next couple of years, you can go watch that film and do your own thing since you don't have access to Netflix. Or I can just shoot you a link over to Raider Bay and you can watch it there. That solves a lot of our problems.
No, no,
So
actually, Glass Onion is going to play. I did find it. I did find it. So yeah, we can do
yeah.
that. And Devotion. It's curious. My friend Gabe asked me if Glenn Powell had been in the military because this is like the third time he plays a like a Navy pilot or
This
like a
year.
well, yeah, but twice this year and once in Hidden Figures, where he was John Glenn. So it was like, is going to be his forte, playing nothing but military people?
Yeah, and then as you can see, some of our other guys not very inversed with movies, but hey, that's why you watch this show. So if because you
Well,
guys don't watch movies, go ahead.
I just want to say real quick, the highest like liked review I have on Letterboxd is my 1-star review or half-star review rather of Knives Out from 3 years ago. So yeah, I hated that movie, so I'm pretty sure I'm gonna hate this one. And I will say that Devotion actually looks kind of good. Like the trailer has me
It has
half
potential.
convinced it has a chance to be good, but you know, we know what this year's been like, so we'll see.
I was not impressed with Knives Out. I didn't like it. I thought it was vastly overrated. With Daniel Craig's
A bunch
Foghorn
of
Leghorn on
pretentious
crack.
rich assholes.
Yes, and the mini Shapiro, and actually like
Yeah,
a smaller version of Ben Shapiro, which I thought was rather
who they
illogical.
called a Nazi repeatedly throughout the entire film. By the way,
Yes, yes. I mean, the whole thing was just absurd. But it does have Ana de Armas, so I'm really pushing for her to get a nomination. I will name her on my list for lead actress.
I mean, we're coming up here on the end of the year, and Blonde is still in my top 10 for the best. So I mean, so I give her a little bit of credit there. But yeah, just a quick little note there. Since I'm banned from Letterboxd, I've been working on a little project for a site called Movie Lens. I don't have enough details to give to you guys just yet, but I am working on it. I do. I've moved over at least 600 of my reviews over to Movie Lens. So once we get that hankered away, I can give you more information based on that one later on. But until then, for everyone who joined us tonight, Spencer, Cassie, who joined us, Duke Nukem, who was in the chat with us tonight, C.S. Johnson, who sat here and listened to us ramble on about absolutely nothing, Alex versus Evil, who was in the chat earlier tonight as well. And if I forgot everyone, if you dropped by, I want to thank you guys as well. But until then, I will see you guys tomorrow night on the Barroom Podcast. I guess I'll see you two back on the Barroom Podcast. Let's go ahead and hit our outro, get the hell out of here. Go back to watching either the Niners Cardinals game, or if you like hockey, you can watch hockey. I mean, that's on too. So until
World
then,
Cup.
no. Unless you want to see a bunch of liberals get arrested and never seen from ever again because they're wearing fucking pride shirts in Qatar. Yeah, go ahead and you go do that one. But until then, we'll see you tomorrow night on the Barroom Podcast. Good night.